So one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was from a man who didn't have much education at all. He was a tracker, a guide, when I was in Botswana with my wife on a foot safari. We're going along in the bush, and I see some lions up ahead. I'm a little bit scared. I say to the guide, "Excuse me, guide, do we have to be worried about those lions I see up ahead?" And the guide, big man, looks at me. He says, beautiful voice, try and recreate it. He says, "Do not worry about the lions that you see up ahead." And I'm thinking, really? Because I think we're going to get eaten. And then he does a very funny thing. He takes the rifle off his shoulder, and he slowly turns around 360 degrees, comes back to me. And then he says, "Be very worried about the lions you do not see." Now that is excellent advice when you're walking around in Botswana. It's also metaphorically very good advice if you're trying to build a business. Because I believe some of the most difficult things you're going to face are things you've never thought about. So if the only thing you take away from the next 19 minutes and 79 more slides, the only thing you take away is this, you'll have gotten your money's worth. Certainly one thing you have thought about, I'm sure, if you're building a business, is exits. Your VC backers have thought about this. Interesting thing about exits in VC-backed companies, the most frequent thing exit's going to be is failure. Now that's not good news. The thing you think about the most, probably fantasize the most about, is the thing that is most unlikely to happen. And that, of course, is the spectacular IPO. What does that leave us with? Well, the most frequent successful exit is going to be bought by somebody else like myself, like the Priceline Group. Now, I've been at the Priceline Group now 14 years, almost. February would be 14 years. So I've done a bunch of deals there, and before that, I was a head trader at Morgan Stanley Asset Management for a guy named Barton Biggs, and before that, I was an M&A banker, so I have a little bit of experience in this. And it turns out, when you look at the academic studies, most M&A deals end up in failure, some spectacularly so. Here are a couple terrible examples of really bad deals. But these studies are mostly from the point of view of the acquiring shareholder. You're a seller. And from the point of view of the seller, not so bad, as can be seen by these smiling faces, who have several hundred million reasons to smile. It's Steve Case of AOL, Brent and Martha, Dinesh. These guys are very, very happy, as they should be. Now, why do we want to do deals? Well, there are some good reasons, 5 strategic reasons to do a deal that I've come up with, list them here. There are lots of bad reasons, we won't list those, things like the ego of the CEO, the management has metrics, performance metrics, that they will get big bonuses if they just get revenue up. Things like that are bad reasons. Here are some good reasons. I'm going to go through each one individually. So let's start off with this one. Geographical expansion, it's a good reason. And let's show an example. eBookers. eBookers was founded in the late 1990s here in the UK. If you don't know where you are, you're here in that circle. And in February 2005, the Cendant Corporation came along, decided they wanted to buy it. How much did they spend? 209 million sterling, more than 300 million US, a lot of money back then. Why did they want to do that? Well, Cendant owned this company, Orbitz, an online travel company in the US. It owned these online assets out in Australia, nothing in the middle there. So I said, let's buy eBookers. It's a European company. They went out and they bought it. So let's put this up. That's a reason to do a deal. Priceline, we also wanted to do well in Europe. We had already failed once. In 2000, we had set up a JV, an independently managed company called Priceline Europe. Other people's money, it licensed technology from the Priceline company. And the idea is it would build up a big Priceline-like company starting in the UK and go out through Europe. And it ended up being a complete financial disaster. Burned through, I don't know, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 million US in 18 months. Didn't work at all. And then after the terrorism of 9/11, nobody wanted to put any more money into it. So we took it over from the Priceline company in the US, and the CEO said to me, Glenn, go over to the UK, stop that cash burn and figure out what to do. So I came over here, and I'm saying, I don't know what to do. So the first thing, I had to fire most people because we had very little money, and I started looking around who in this country knows how to sell travel. I found some very smart people up in Cambridge at a company called Active Hotels. One of the founders, Andy Phillips, he was a PhD from Cambridge, and his COO, Matt Witt, also a PhD from Cambridge, and they really knew what they were doing, I thought. Tiny business, but very exciting, because they were doing hotel only. I said, hey, can we get together? Took a couple years of trying to convince them, and finally they came on board. Now, the valuation of the company at the time was $165 million, but we didn't pay all cash out. We structured it so that the founding members of the team and the managers would have stakes in the company. So if the company grew, they'd be able to get a good return. I said, this is great. So this is a reason to do a geographical expansion, but it's not always a good reason to do it. So how did the Cendant thing turn out? Well, it turns out 14 months after the Cendant eBookers deal closed, Cendant had to write off the entire amount of the deal. Now, there's a technical term for this kind of a deal. It's called a mistake. There are many mistakes in M&A, and particularly in the travel. I'm going to go through a whole bunch more. Next one on our list is consolidation. That's a reason to do a deal. In this example, to show you how far back mistakes go, I'm going to go back to 1968, rail. On the left, we have the logo for Penn Central, largest US rail company at the time. On the right, we have New York Central, another very big rail company. They decided they were going to get together, merge. It was the largest merger to date at that time in the United States. Now, why did they want to do it? Well, it was so big, they had to testify before Congress, and here are some of the reasons the CEOs talked about. Remove duplicate facilities, eliminate redundancies, increase efficiencies. These are the words people use when they're doing a consolidation day. Now, if you are involved in a consolidation M&A and you are working for the team that is being acquired, step one, get your CV together, because unfortunately there's probably going to be a lot of blood in the street. We also did that. We'll put this one up. We did one a little bit differently. We didn't have to fire anybody, but it was a consolidation play. 2 months after we did the active deal, the CEO, Andy, came up to me and said, do you know these guys at Booking.com? I said, well, I kind of know them, but what? He said, well, I think they're pretty interesting. I said, okay, let's go talk to them. So we went to talk to them, and it was wonderful because they were doing the exact same thing that Active was doing. So I said, yeah, we can put these together and we'll save money on systems and things like that. We won't need to have the same person, 2 people going to visit a hotel, that person go to another hotel. It looked like a great deal. It took 9 months, but we convinced them to come on board also. So 2005, we did that one. That deal was valued at $135 million US. Same type of deal, though. We didn't pay all cash out. We left equity in the founders, the members, so that everybody would feel they had a big stake in the success of the company. And these things were managed independently. We had already proven from the US that we had absolutely no idea how to sell travel in Europe. And we took these companies in because we want to get their knowledge how to do this. So we brought them in. Now, is consolidation always a good deal? Does it always work out well? Well, how'd this Penn Central deal worked out? Well, it turned out that 29 months after the deal, the largest US merger ever became the largest US bankruptcy ever. It cratered the entire commercial paper market, almost brought down the entire US financial system. It was the Lehman Brothers moment of its day, a real horror story. Let's do another one, number 3, network linkage. This is pretty popular in the internet to do deals. But we don't have to do an internet one. We can go back. We can do an air one. Pan Am on the left. Probably know Pan Am. I looked all over the internet, find the logo for National Airlines. Couldn't find it anywhere. There's nothing there. The only thing there was this picture of their air sickness bag. The only thing that remains of National Airlines. And if you can read the top, motion discomfort bag called stewardess, which pretty much gives you a little foreshadowing to what happened to this deal. And why'd they want to do this one? Well, let's look at the Pan Am route system. This is if you looked in the back of a Pan Am magazine while you're flying, the back seat, you'd see that route very international. Let's zoom into the US. Not a lot of flights going on inside the US. What about National? National was a domestic carrier. Let's look at their map, which no doubt is the worst map I've ever seen. I have no idea why they've got those clocks at the top. But you can see that these routes up and down the eastern seaboard, down on the southern part across the country. The idea being maybe somebody gets on a national plane from New Orleans, goes to Miami, wants to go to London, can get on a Pan Am flight. That's the linkage. So let's put that one up there. Now, we also were thinking about how could we do something like this. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I believe there's a linkage here. I was looking at a company called Agoda, which was in Bangkok, early 2002, 2003. And it took many, many years, but eventually we got together and we did a deal in 2007. And the idea was Agoda had a lot of Asian, still has a lot of Asian customers. Now, if they want a hotel in Europe, though, by buying this company and putting it into our group, we can create sort of a symbolic linkage where they would be able to get the inventory that Booking.com had in Europe. So again, it's a linkage idea, very powerful. So we did that one. Cost only $16 million cash, but again, incentives and everything so that people will be able to manage their company on their own. If it's become successful, they get a lot more, and we brought them in. Now, does network linkage always work? Well, you don't see a lot of Pan Am planes flying anymore, do you? And if you read a book about the destruction of Pan Am, this is the money sentence. It basically blames the destruction of Pan Am on this merger with National. I think that's probably a lot of the reasons. Let's do one more. Product expansion. This is also very popular in travel, internet areas. Well, this example, air, hotels, and car rental. This deal, 1987. Okay, we have UAL. UAL is the parent company to United Airlines. It also owned Westin Hotels. It also owned Hertz Rental Car. And then in 1987, they said, let's buy Hilton International. Now that's different than Hilton US. These are all international hotels. And then they said, you know, let's change the name. UAL doesn't sound like travel at all. So they spent an awful lot of money. They went out and hired some brand consultants, come up with a name. And what they came up with was this gem, Linkage, which I don't know about you, it does not sound like travel to me. It sounds like a terrible skin disease, but they spent a lot of money for it and they put it up there. Okay. Why did they do this? Well, the idea was they're already getting people to buy airline tickets. An airline ticket means you're going somewhere, and it means you probably need a hotel, you probably need a car rental, and that's why they did these deals. It was the supermarket idea, and we call that cross-sell. So let's put it on there. Now, at Priceline, in 2009, I met some people up in Manchester, and they were doing an international car rental business. They called it Travel Jigsaw. It's now called rentalcars.com. I think we did a better job of changing the name than UAL did. And now it's there, 2010, same type of deal, roughly 100 million or so, round numbers. All these numbers I'm giving are public. You can go in if you want to see them, find out. They're all somewhere in the SEC filings. 2010 brought them in the idea again, we have lots of customers who are traveling, maybe they need a rental car. So they brought that in. Now, is product expansion always a good idea? Well, after the Hilton International deal, the UAL board got together. It was like 2 months later, they said, you know, this doesn't work at all. Let's sell everything. It's a lot of money for the bankers, not very good for the shareholders. Last example, unique processes and assets. What's this one about? Well, the example I came up with is like Travel Price Predictions 2008. On the left, Microsoft. Microsoft owns Bing Travel. I don't know if you ever used it. Not a lot of people have, apparently. On the right side, a company called Faircast. What's Faircast? Faircast was a bunch of mathematician-type people, scientists, and they said, you know, if you look at historical airline prices and do all sorts of computer algorithms, we'll be able to predict what future airline prices are going to be. And we can create a business out of this by telling people whether or not to buy an airline ticket now, because buy it now if the price is going to go up. Don't buy it if the prices are going to go down. And some people at Microsoft thought this was a good idea, and they spent $115 million in cash. Now, I had two thoughts when this happened. The first thought I had is I'd do it for $50 and give them a static page with the arrow pointed up, because it seems pretty simple. And if you're a retailer, you should tell people buy now. Not a good idea if you're trying to sell something, don't buy. Not good at all. The second thing came to mind, because I have background as a trader at Morgan Stanley Asset Management. I said, you know, if you really can use historical prices to predict future prices, you may not be using it for the right industry. No matter, they did this deal. And why they did it, I have no idea. So let's put that on the list. We did something like this too. Last spring, we went out, we bought a company called Kayak. Before that, we were just an online travel company, booking travel. Kayak is a meta-search company. It's more of an advertising platform, very different process than what we're doing, so we brought that one in. Now, how has this one turned out? Well, Microsoft does not disclose any numbers, so I can't say anything about that. What I can say, though, is has anybody here ever, right before you bought your airline ticket, said, oh, wait, I better go check and see whether it's going to go up or not, go to Faircast? Enough said about that one. So, M&A, very difficult to do. It's prone to failure. People write a lot of books about this. Here's a real book, Deals from Hell. That's a real book. You can go to Amazon, you can buy it. I don't suggest it. It's a bad book, but it's a bad book about bad deals, so at least there's some symmetry there. And I made fun of all these other deals. What about our deals? How did our deals end up? Well, can't talk much about Kayak right now, so let's talk about, we just did that one. Now, if you're keeping track of the other four, I threw out a bunch of numbers. We paid a lot less than $500 million, but I'm saying 500 for easy math purposes. If you look at our 10K, over 90% of the operating income came from those four acquisitions. Now, our market cap as of yesterday was about $57 billion or so, rough cut. So no matter how you slice it, no matter how you want to try and divide up how much that 57 should go to these four acquired companies, I'd say it's at least more than 50 billion. So less than 500 million into 50 billion. That's a very good return. And a lot of people say, how'd you do that? What was the secret sauce? What did you do? Obviously, there are so many reasons to go through and try and explain it. It's very hard. But one thing that really stands out in my mind is all these companies we acquired, we incentivized well, correct? But even more so, we had them operate independently and share information. By sharing this knowledge among all our companies, things that worked well could get shared to another company. And the things that didn't work well, because, hey, don't do that one, it doesn't work. That's really good. And we thought last year, we said, with that knowledge, maybe we could bring this to other companies, to relatively early stage companies, companies that don't have anything to do with travel. And we could make it an investment. So we formed Priceline Ventures, which I run, which is your typical corporate VC effort. We want to share money into there, buy a little bit of a stake, bring our knowledge to the company, and maybe by putting that knowledge in there, it would help that company grow faster. At the same time, we would want to invest in companies that we think we'd get some knowledge that we could share across our platform. So some of the things we look at are mobile, data analytics, social, the things that we think will help our business a great deal. So let me sum it all up. I've said it several times, deals are hard. Most of them are going to fail. They're very much like third marriages, clear case of hope over experience. They're going to keep on happening, though. So the last thing I'm going to say is, if you're going to do a deal, make sure you do it with the right partner. Thank you very much.